This is Earl Amin with the 2020 Foresight Podcast, where CEOs of small to global companies share their insights. It is 6 questions in 9 minutes because top CEOs know how to listen and be concise. So let's get to it. First of all, welcome. And in just a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Earl. I'm David Repinski. I'm the U.S. CEO for CRU Group. We are a Canadian-based independent claims adjusting firm. We provide claim services to property and casualty insurers in the U.S., Canada, and the London market. This is all I've ever done. I've done it for 30 years.
Well, you must be really great at it. Well, tell me, what's the best thing about being the U.S. CEO?
I think for me, it's taking a team of hardworking people and trying to help them work smarter, figuring out what they're good at, what they enjoy, because that's what drives the best outcomes for our clients and for their customers. I also really enjoy the variety of the role. Every day is different. You never know what you're going to get. Some days are better than others, but there's a lot of variety to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, like myself, that you've heard from other CEOs that, leading a team and being able to see what lies ahead can be a challenge. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a challenge. And I think kind of what goes part and parcel with that is it's about seeing what's ahead and then figuring out what to do about it, right? It's one thing to see it. It's another thing to figure it out. But yeah. I think a big part for the CEO is they shouldn't be the only ones looking to see what's ahead. It's about getting your team to look ahead, teaching them how to look ahead and what they're seeing, and also having a culture that's safe. So they can raise their hand and say, hey, this is what I think I see, or this is what I think we should do. And that's all part of that nurturing process that also produces a better team. I think it increases your chances of getting it right when more people are looking. Mm-hmm. But I also think the converse of that is true, right? One of the hardest things that a CEO has to decide on is what to stop doing. What have we started? What did we see? Or what did we think we see? What did we do about it? And we got it wrong. It's just going to happen sometimes, right? And so instead of allocating precious resources of time and money to something that's not going to work, it's knowing when to have the courage to stop. And I think those decisions can be tough because they're emotional decisions. It's about raising your hand and saying, we didn't get this right.
Yeah, well said. So is there a specific piece of insight that you want to share with other CEOs?
Yeah, I think a big part that the CEO does is to reduce the noise in the organization, reduce the fake work. We're very good as corporations, especially as we get larger and more bureaucratic, about enacting reports and meetings and call outs and things like that serve a purpose at a time, but nobody goes back and continues to look at them and say, should we still be doing this? And so we burden our colleagues down doing a bunch of work that satisfied a mission a year ago or 2 years ago or last month, but it doesn't need to keep going. So I think part of what the CEO has to be doing is constantly looking at it and saying, should we really be doing this? Does it add value? Does it still add value? Because maybe it did at one point. And I think one of the benefits of this crazy pandemic that we've had for the last 13 months is it's taught us to do things differently. We worked our staff remote. We had different workflows. Employee engagement looked different. Hiring looked different. But I suspect that a lot of that fake work and bureaucracy fell to the floor because we simply didn't have the ability or the time to do it because we were in a different work situation. So if you put all that together, you start to ask yourself, what are things going to look like when we do return to normal? How many of these changes are temporary versus lasting? And I think we're going to be challenged as we return to normal to redefine what that looks like.
Again, well said. Very good point of view. Well, David, tell me, along your pathway to become USA CEO of the company, and what other successful CEOs, your peers, who are successful like yourself, would you like to acknowledge or shout out to and should be on my podcast?
Probably too many to list. I've been mentored by a lot of people, CEOs and otherwise, and I continue to draw inspiration. But if you force me to give you 2 names, I'll give you these 2, and here's why. The first one I'll say is an individual here in Dallas named John Amen, and he runs a commercial real estate brokerage called the Amen Group. And he's a brilliant guy. And I think his view of what's happening in the commercial real estate market, not just in DFW, but around the country, is really interesting. It's got nothing to do with my business, but it's an interesting leading indicator on what's happening as we kind of go through the last year of the pandemic and we start to emerge from that, and what companies are starting to look at in terms of their commercial footprint, their real estate footprint, because I think that the knockdown effect from that is going to have a great deal of societal impact for us. And not unrelated to that is a gentleman named Kevin O'Meara. Kevin is a dear friend. He's here in Dallas, but he runs a company out of Calgary called DIRT, DIRTT. And first of all, Kevin's probably the smartest guy I know. But what DIRT does is they address workspace solutions. And I think if you look at what's happening with workspace, based on what we talked about right now, his company is seeing some pretty unique things in terms of kind of tied to how companies are coming back to work, what they're looking at as far as trying to create that right culture of teamwork and having employees around each other, and at the same time having to be safe and recognize that a lot more people are going to be remote as we go forward.
Outstanding. Well, thank you very much. We received that. So now, David, for the final question, how do you celebrate a win?
Loudly. We really, certainly our U.S. business is not too far away from having been a startup. And we've created it with this culture of let's build this thing and let's grow it. And every client is near and dear to our hearts. Every win is a massive victory for us. And we really have a sales culture. And I think a key part of having that sales culture is making sure that you celebrate a client win, because the whole team has to kind of rally around the fact that we've got this new client and now we better take care of them.
Yeah, very good. Well, David, it's been a pleasure having you on. How can people find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm also at Repinski at CRUadjusters.com. Either way is great with me.
All right. This is Earl Amin with the 2024 Side Podcast. For more insights, go to LinkedIn and search for The Gray Owl Company. David, thank you very much.
Thank you, Earl.